Welcome to the Polite Conversations podcast, where every episode is focused on civility, decorum, and good manners. And I'm your lovable, non-controversial host, Ina. If you know me, you know I definitely don't like to ruffle any feathers at all.
The Karen slur is attacking white women who believe in being treated respectfully, who want to live in a nice society. Karen emailed us. She said, "Charlie, it's time for the Karen name calling to stop. I cringe when someone asks me for my name." That's sad. You did nothing wrong. It's like a mass discrimination. Could you imagine if we did that? And we should not do this, by the way. Let me just be very clear. We should not do this. We should not be like, well, you're acting like a Trayvon. Could you imagine? Don't do that. That's bad. Could you imagine the stereotyping? That's the equivalent. You're a Shaniqua. Can't do that. If that makes you cringe, that's exactly what they're doing with the name Karen. Exactly what they're doing. They are mislabeling an entire racial group for something they did not do to try to create a prejudice. Could you imagine?
In the first couple of days after the suspect in this Kirk shooting, the story was constantly changing. There were retractions and they got two wrong guys and there was endless confusion, but that did not stop the incitement against the left. The narrative was predetermined from the start. They were going to blame the left somehow via queer people, gay people, black people, trans people especially. Some Zionists were trying to pin it on the anti-genocide protesters. Jewish supremacist fascist group Beitar even said this was the fault of Free Palestine, whatever that means. The goalposts kept shifting, but the target was broadly the left, whatever way they could link it. They just hurled a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what would stick. Netanyahu tried to squeeze in blaming Islamist extremism and talked about their alleged union with ultra-progressives, just utter bullshit. ISIS or Al-Qaeda are not exactly known for their alliance with progressives, for fuck's sake. And again, this was all before we had any information about who the shooter actually was. And you know who is said to be funding and arming ISIS-linked gangs, as reported even in the Israeli press? Yep, that's right. Israel is the one who's working with and arming Islamist groups. Every accusation is a confession, as they say. Anyway, here's Netanyahu's desperate attempt to blame Islamists and progressives for Charlie Kirk's assassination.
A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate. He certainly didn't invite the violence, the horrible violence that tried to silence him. And this is a worldwide problem. The people on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and their union with the ultra progressives, the radical Islamists and their union with the ultra progressives, the radical Islamists and their union with the ultra progressives. They often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies. They use violence to try to take down their enemies. To try to take down their enemies, whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or they try to kill me here too. But they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
The absolute fucking nerve of this guy, who is currently wanted by the ICC for war crimes, who is carrying out a genocide in full view of the world, who is responsible for killing the most journalists ever. More have been killed by Israel than in both world wars, the Vietnam War, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan combined. This fucking guy is lecturing progressives about human rights and free speech.
They often speak about human rights, they speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies.
It's unreal that anyone could say that to others while carrying out a genocide themselves and hunting journalists to silence them. But this is the sort of delusion and lack of self-reflection that one develops after years and years of endless impunity, I suppose. And once it was discovered that the shooter was a white guy from a gun-loving MAGA family, the rhetoric started to change. You saw those who were calling for blood, calling for the shooter to be put to death, start to say things like, oh, they were praying for the soul of this lost young man. And then the attacks on higher education started rolling in because they still had to find a way to put it entirely on the left. The claim was that he was radicalized at a far-left college that had indoctrinated him with woke Marxist stuff or something. But it turned out that he only spent one semester at Utah State University before ending up at trade school in an electrical apprenticeship program. Not really a field known for its wokeness, if you ask me. They were just trying anything, claiming that universities were indoctrination camps, brainwashing children. And this is the same side that tries to mandate Bibles in schools, for fuck's sake. Here's Trump advisor Kari Lake.
And I'm not going to say our side is perfect, but damn it, this is coming from the other side. How does a 22-year-old become so filled with hate? 5 years earlier, I was told he was a Trump supporter. And we sent our kids off to college and they brainwashed him. I am making a plea to mothers out there. Do not send your children into these indoctrination camps. Don't do it. Do not do it.
You know, right-wingers, they despise an educated person. They despise education because it makes the propaganda less effective, because they can't manipulate people as easily. Laura Loomer posted that it was time to defund universities altogether. And as we know, Trump has already been at war with universities. And now this was a chance to just openly suggest that federal funding should be pulled from all universities whose employees say anything Trump or his allies dislike. Nancy Mace, who is clearly not all right and has been calling for Ilhan Omar to be deported or censured, straight up lying that she supports ISIS. She issued a press release calling on the Department of Education to cut off every dime of federal funding to any elementary, secondary, or post-secondary school who refuses to remove or discipline staff who glorify and justify political violence. By which they mean even just be accurately quoting Charlie Kirk. That's all it takes. That's what they have been calling a justification of political violence. Any sort of contextualizing of who he was. They were out there essentially demanding what you could say was affirmative action for conservatives only, saying that they needed to make schools more conservative. Others demanded more surveillance on campus, and there were endless dog whistles about universities being some sort of hotbed of Marxism. Where have we heard that shit before? And these are the same types of people always making excuses for genocide, making jokes about ICE abductions. Laura Loomer thought it was funny to joke about feeding migrants to alligators not long ago. These are the people who called for political violence on January 6, 2021. Their leader is constantly using violent rhetoric. There are endless compilations of clips of Trump making shooting gestures, saying violent things himself, and excusing right-wing violence all over the internet. We have radical left lunatics out there, and we just have to beat the hell out of them. That is something Trump himself has said. Trump also pardoned violent January 6th criminals who keep getting arrested again. They are just fine with political violence when it's them, and when it's the other, they want to use that to enforce and police feelings even. They want to enforce reverence and grief for a fascist. Listen to how one-sided and dangerous this is. It's openly justifying right-wing violence, and it's the fucking president saying it after Kirk's assassination.
radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone. They want open borders.
And I mean, like, I'm not even American, but witnessing this rhetoric, these unbelievably Orwellian crackdowns, the doublespeak, the doublethink, the witch hunts, and attempted criminalization of those deemed insufficiently mournful of the supposed free speech guy. Like, witnessing that has been fucking horrifying. I've never, ever seen anything like it in my life. And if you're familiar with my work, you'll know that I grew up in a theocracy, an actual authoritarian state with zero free speech, a place that does still do public beheadings, which thankfully I only heard about in the distance, never was exposed to that personally, but I did experience fucking morality police on a daily basis. They were out there patrolling the streets, making sure everyone was dressed modest enough, that they were praying when the prayer call was heard, but I never experienced this policing of emotion, where you'd have people enforcing a mandatory grieving while insisting they are champions of free speech. It is brain-breaking levels of gaslighting. At least Saudi Arabia doesn't pretend to be some utopian free speech Disneyland. They're pretty clear about what they are. But in the US of A, these champions of free speech were not only patrolling the streets to find businesses who weren't complying with government orders to fly their flags at half-mast for Charlie Kirk and 9/11 maybe. I mean, that used to be a significant, solemn day for America, but it seems to have become a footnote to like Charlie Kirk Day. It's all so strange. But anyway, the free speech gang, the right, they were also running a fucking database of all those they deemed to be mourning insufficiently. Like, this is a real thing that they did. They first named the database Charlie's Murderers, claiming that this was a searchable database of people who, quote-unquote, celebrated Charlie's murder, which, you know, as offensive as you may find it, should be protected speech in America. And they, of course, put people on there who simply shared completely factual quotes of things Charlie Kirk had said, did no celebrating at all. They put random Muslims and Arabs on that database, who were then inundated with threats and hateful emails. They had their addresses, photos, and social media information leaked, again, for no reason at all. And eventually they rebranded from Charlie's Murderers to Charlie Kirk Data Foundation, and tweeted encouraging people to keep sending them names to add. They said, "We are now at well over 50,000 confirmed identities and nearing 60,000. Keep pushing. This doesn't even include all your DMs and comments, which we'll get to soon. This is for Charlie Kirk. Can we get to 100,000? But after that, the website suddenly vanished. The damage was already done, though. It's just unbelievably sick. And coming from the self-proclaimed, like, free speech and anti-cancel culture side, setting all this up for a supposed free speech hero is so many layers of absurd. But that Free Speech Heroes organization, TPUSA, also had a doxxing list, a professor watch list, which got many professors death threats and harassment, all because he disagreed with their views. So a doxing list in his honor is a fitting tribute, I suppose. And you'll never believe, the guy that led this effort to dox people for quote-unquote disrespecting Kirk or not having a sufficient amount of state-ordered adoration for him, A guy called Ryan Fournier, well, he was once accused of beating a woman in the head with a firearm. Is that maybe, like, disrespectful also? Zeteo and Dropsite reporter Jason Palladino dug up some court records showing just that. I will put that in the show notes. Who knows? Maybe that's why the website vanished. But you see, these are the people. These are the people demanding civility and respect in every corner of society right now, and threatening you if you don't comply. Like this absurd policing of emotion and forced lowering of flags and shit resulted in some bizarre situations, like trans and pride flags were seen lowered to half-mast in West Hollywood because they had to comply with the orders or else. But also, lowering a trans and pride flag to honor a bigot like Charlie Kirk is fucking insane. His rhetoric about gay and trans people was violent and insightful and dangerous, and people had to lower their pride flags at public buildings to honor him, because it was ordered that they do so. And that's not all. They will not leave any space untouched by this authoritarianism. They're going after underpaid baristas and creating a situation where they can force them to write Kirk's name on Starbucks cups too. They cannot just write Charlie. They must write the full name or else. It's unbelievably ridiculous. Here's an interaction someone uploaded to TikTok and complained about when the employee was perfectly friendly and served the person very respectfully.
Hi, let me get a grande mint majesty with 2 honeys.
Okay. You're gonna go over here, okay?
Okay.
Perfect. What else today?
That's it.
Perfect. What was the name for the order? Or actually, we need a name.
The name is Charlie Kirk.
We can't do political names, but it didn't even ask for a name to begin with, so it's gonna be $3.75, okay?
Oh, but can you write the name on the cup?
The sticker won't print.
Oh, you can't write on that?
I could, but I could write Charlie
Why can't you write the whole name?
because it's political.
Political?
Yes,
Like-
yeah. Let me start your TV, okay? It's going to be $3.75 today.
You know what? Forget it. I don't want it.
And after this, Rudy Giuliani shared a statement from Starbucks and tweeted, "Update: Starbucks employees must write Charlie Kirk's name." Like, I know I keep saying this, but this is mass delusion on a scale I just have not witnessed before. And the Starbucks statement he shared threw that barista under the bus, of course. And it said that there was officially no restriction on customers using Kirk's name on their order. I mean, this is not one story either. There has been a widespread, manufactured culture war raging over this petty, petty shit. Just a perfect opportunity for more cry-bullying and right-wing pretend victimhood. Here's another TikTok that explains the phenomenon quite well.
Let's talk about what's going on at Starbucks right now because it's absolutely freaking wild. So CK supporters are going and ordering what they are calling his drink, Charlie's drink, which is literally mint tea with 2 honeys. Do with that what you will. But they are ordering it and then they are asking, they're putting the order under his name. And then if people will not shout out the entire name, like if they say like, I have an order for Charlie, and they don't say the full name, they won't shout it out. They are going up to the counter that these baristas are working at, and they're screaming at them. There's video of this all over the place, and they are asking to get them fired. They are doxing these baristas for literally saying first name, not last name. We've reached a new level of complete and utter psychosis, like the deification of a podcaster that none of his quotes, even when taken out of context, were ever anything kind or nice or uplifting. And now you're going to Starbucks?
And just as an example of how artificial this all is, there's a recently published story where a customer claimed to have asked for Kirk's name on the cup, and instead an employee had supposedly written loser on their cup. But later it was confirmed through time-stamped CCTV footage that no one had written any such thing on their cup after all. It's just pathetic. Anyway, they are still trying and baiting Starbucks employees to see if they don't comply, and then trying to get them fired. How long before the government says you can only order coffee under the name Charlie Kirk, I wonder? Like, they probably think they're so badass for going into what they perceive not to be a corporation, a business, but some sort of woke space, and forcing baristas who are like, they're paid to do what you ask. So to think that getting them to write Kirk's name on the cups is some sort of win is just so pathetic. What a fucking brave and noble fight to take on. They can't be refused now, Giuliani has said. Checkmate, libs. The anti-pronoun people, the find another baker people, are forcing you to write their currently preferred name on their Starbucks order. There's no battle too petty, no hill too small for the MAGA holy warriors. I honestly am surprised that there's no move yet to make Kirk fans like an official protected class or something. But the free speech gang are not going to stop with policing coffee cups either. Like, they've targeted not just Colbert a little while ago, but then they took Jimmy Kimmel off the air too. First they said indefinitely, but now he's back. And all this because he said some totally meh stuff that in any other time would just not be a big deal. He's not a news show, he's a comedian I don't really listen to or care for, but the attacks on what he can say are appalling because it shows how brazen all this is. How they're coming for everyone, even rich, cishet, white men. In fact, Trump also suggested to a reporter that the FCC could revoke licenses of TV broadcasters that give them too much bad publicity. This is just open authoritarianism. Just open attacks and threats on an already extremely compliant and cooperative media sphere. And like, Kimmel said absolutely nothing that deserved him being pulled. This is all he said.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
And really, we still don't have a clear picture about the shooter's politics. We don't. Some have said he was apolitical. I don't know if I buy that really. Some have said he was a leftist. But there's no evidence of that type of politics other than him being allegedly queer. Again, I have a hard time trusting any detail right now. Some in the earlier days said he may have been further to the right of Kirk, like a Nick Fuentes-loving Groyper. But apart from a vague meme-related Halloween costume, we haven't seen anything to indicate that either, or anything at all that says much about his motive, except for the very weird bunch of texts that seem too convenient and which not many are buying, from the left to the center to the right. Everyone has talked about how shady those texts are. Just like the recent anti-ICE written on the bullets. And there's nothing clear in those texts about the political leanings of the shooter, except for him saying that Charlie Kirk spread hate, but there's no explanation of what that was referring to. But what we do know is that he was raised in a MAGA family, in a very gun-loving family, from clearly a very young age. His mother had been posting pictures of him with giant guns for years. And those bullet casing engraving messages, Bella Ciao, etc. Those seemed incoherent to me and not indicative of a clear political leaning, possibly intentionally. Irony poisoning is a real issue nowadays. The Discord messages that were released also seem very devoid of politics, which is strange, and it doesn't tell us much. So I'd say it's still unclear. And you can disagree with Kimmel's jokes or Kimmel's interpretation of the situation if you want. I mean, I do. I don't think there's any clear evidence either way. But to punish someone for that so disproportionately, using the power of the state, is unhinged. It's so unhinged that even Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro weren't down with it. It's so unhinged that right-wing supposed free speech organization FIRE was also actually defending free speech instead of going after college kids for a change. Like the chairman of the FCC, who also happens to be an author on Project 2025, he said on a right-wing podcast that this was a very serious issue for Disney right now. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to take action on Kimmel. And yeah, he threatened the licenses granted to the company by the FCC, and then, magically, Kimmel was taken off the air. Indefinitely at the time. And dumbass right-wing apologists for this action, like Tim Pool, who have in the past objected to every Nazi deplatforming from like Twitter, are now claiming that ABC is a private company and they can do what they want. Completely leaving out the threats and direction from the chairman of the Federal Communication Commission. And in the aftermath of all that, it was reported that Jimmy Kimmel Live was going to be replaced by a Charlie Kirk tribute special on Sinclair's ABC affiliate stations, and that Kimmel was being pressured to apologize to Kirk's family and send a meaningful personal donation to them and Kirk's TPUSA organization. Like, jeez! The replacement of Kimmel's show with a Kirk special didn't end up happening. I think they aired Family Feud or something instead. But yeah, that is some wild shit to even float. So let's get this straight. Again, the Make Comedy Legal people had a comedian removed for making a throwaway joke, using threats from a government official, and then it was threatened that his time slot was to be replaced by a tribute to a white supremacist to appease the fascist government. It's out of control. And these corporations, right-leaning as they may be, they aren't going to stand up for anything much other than their ability to keep profiting at the end of the day. And that's where people can make a difference. Thankfully, the boycotts and anger from Disney adults added enough pressure to get them to change course and bring him back. You do not mess with Disney adults. This is the power of boycotts. And this is why they want to criminalize BDS. Why so many states have anti-BDS laws, which is also very anti-free speech. And BDS is also why you should still keep boycotting Disney. Anyway, Kimmel was back. And folks, I hate to report it, but he certainly caved to all that pressure. He basically, amongst taking jabs at Trump, did a tearful apology like a good, obedient citizen. He even went further than that and legitimized the Christian nationalist tone things are taking, praising Kirk's fascist wife, who is also a podcaster. And he also legitimized his MAGA friends and family as being just like regular people you happen to have normal political disagreements with. Not people who are actively reveling in the cruelty of this fascist administration. Not people who are a threat to the very existence of minorities. So yeah, he did what he was told so he could get back on the air, and all is well again. And the blue no matter who types are gushing all over Blue Sky about what a class act Jimmy Kimmel is. Again, this is the supposed left, normalizing how wonderful it is to weep over a white supremacist whom you were punished for not sufficiently weeping over before.
It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. For those who think I did point a finger. I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love. And
please subscribe via patreon.com/nicemangoes for the extended episode.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support it, there are several ways you can do that. You can share it online, talk about what you just heard. You can leave a 5-star review to help others find it too. And you can also subscribe via patreon.com/nicemangoes. No E in mangoes. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter before it's completely wrecked, you'll find me at Nice Mangoes. Again, no E in mangoes.